Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Saga again with Hannah and Dave. How are you, Hannah?
I'm well, and how are you?
I am doing great. It's been a little bit since we've knocked out a story beyond the Skywalker saga.
It's not like we were busy doing a lot of things, or anything
Yes,
like that.
right. And I'm taking forever to get through some of these books. So that's kind of my fault. But we talked about doing some more of these, and we got to get caught up on some things. You've actually gotten through some books, and
Yes.
I'm going to actually get back to reading some more comics, and we
Mm-hmm.
can do some of those here coming soon because we've got to continue on Darth Vader. We've got Star Wars to do and things like that. But today we are going to talk about a book that, again, one that's been out there for a while, and one of the first, actually, it was one of the first canon books
Mm.
that came out when, after Disney did the purchase and all these books started rolling out, and that is going to be Lords of the Sith, which is a little fitting since we just came out of a show that really wasn't about the dark side as we thought it was, but it should have been.
Yes.
But anyway, Lords of the Sith by Paul S. Kemp. And this book, as you can imagine, takes place about 8 years after the episode 3. So right in the middle of the reign of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And this centers around the Sith Lords at the time, Darth Sidious and Darth Vader. And the book came out, like I said, man, I can't believe this. The book came out over 9 years ago.
Oof.
April 28th, 2015. And like I said, it's 14 years, 14 years before the Battle of Yavin. So, is that right? Yeah, it's about 8 years. So that's not exactly right. So it's more like 11, 12 years. So anyway, Lords of the Sith, like I said, came out 2015, which is right about, I honestly want to say this was like the third, I think it might have been the third book that came out after the new series of canon books. I believe A New Dawn was the first, which was the one about Kanan and Hera.
Mm-hmm.
Which, have you even read that book yet?
Nope, it's on my
No.
list.
Yeah. So that's like the prequel to the Rebels TV show. And then you had, I believe Tarkin came out after that. And then I think this book came out. Could be wrong, but I think that's around the time. So might have been one other one before this. But around that time, I remember, because I remember I was diving into all these and listening to all these at the time when they were coming out. I feel like I had a lot more time back there for some reason. But I did pick up on the audiobooks around this time, so I did listen to this book. Now, did you listen to this book or read
I
it?
did. I listened to it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So let's Beyond the Saga. This is us just talking about we're even though this book's been out for a long time, we're not going to do too many spoilers just in case no hasn't read this yet. This is kind of us giving you a spoiler-free review, and hopefully you can go check it out. But overall, how did you feel about this book?
So overall, what this book is about is, and this will lead into my overall thoughts of the book. The book is about, obviously, the Lords of the Sith. You essentially have Palpatine testing Vader. And they're going out to check the freedom fighters on Ryloth. Then you have Cham
Syndulla.
Syndulla. I keep on messing up that last name and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, that is Hera's father. He's one of the leaders of the freedom fighters on Ryloth. And they have a mole within the ranks of the Empire that is stationed there in Ryloth. And they learn that Palpatine and Vader are coming to Ryloth.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide it's now or never. This is when we can end it all.
Right.
So that is, I think that's a book in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I was reading the book, you have that A plot, that B plot, and then you have this C plot that is within the generals and the Grand Admirals of the Empire that are stationed on Ryloth and their own individual goals, which felt very Games of Thronesy.
Yeah.
Like it just had that vibe. So, but because of those three different stories, to me, I was confused at times at what this book was about. And I was like, okay, well, who's supposed to be the focus? I know the title is Lords of the Sith, but who are we supposed to focus on? What's the main story here? What are the lessons we're learning? All of that. I will say, though, one part of the book that I really appreciated was the dynamic of the relationship between Palpatine and Vader from Vader's point of view. Because he talks about, like, we learn more about the Sith and we learn more about the relationship between the master and apprentice, which makes me go, that just sounds like an abusive relationship to me. So I don't know why I'm still with this guy.
Yeah.
So that was my takeaway. I thought it was well written. There were definitely parts where I gasped listening to it. There's one scene that displays Vader's power that I will not share because I feel like you need to get to that point of the book and be surprised for yourself. So do I think there are great moments? Do I think the writing was great? Absolutely. I think the storytelling was great as well. But with regards to if you were to ask me what is the theme of this book, I would tell you, well, I think there are three different themes going on. I don't think there's one central theme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to kind of reread this, the story again, the plot summary a little bit because I had to refresh my memory. It's been so long, but as I did, it kind of came flooding back. And what I liked about this book mainly when because as I mentioned, the books that were coming out at the time, A New Dawn, Tarkin, this book. I even think there was the Heir to the Jedi, I think, came out early, which was about Luke.
Okay.
So these first few books were about current characters you already knew about, right? They didn't really introduce new characters yet.
That's a good point.
So I liked how they were giving us these first few novels that had familiar characters, familiar timelines, and this is something we never really gotten, right? We never got a relationship book about Vader and Palpatine or Vader and Sidious, And so I remember getting this thinking, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. I wonder what this is. Now, I will say, I feel like I think we brought this up maybe on Inside the Force a couple weeks ago. For some reason, I think we talked about mindless action movies.
Yes.
Like this is a mindless action movie in my mind.
It is. It
right?
Absolutely is.
It's just a lot of action. Once they get to Ryloth, I mean, they're just basically wiping people out. And I thought the dynamic between them was interesting. And honestly, the most interesting part that I take away from this was that, I remember conversations that they were having that Palpatine, being there. And even at this point, this is 5 or 6 years after Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine didn't get out much. Like no one really saw him.
No.
Right? No, and obviously no one knew he's a Sith Lord, right? So when he's coming here and exposing himself, I remember conversations in this or a conversation in this when Palpatine's basically saying like, no one can know what I can do.
Yes. That was such a fascinating part where he's like, remember, no one knows what I do.
Yes.
It's like, whoa.
That's why everybody that saw them had to die, basically. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting because, again, Palpatine is trying to keep this persona that I'm the victim of this takeover by the Jedi, right? And you feel sorry for me. That's why I'm your emperor. I can lead you to safety. All this, but obviously Cham, who has been fighting since forever that we've known him.
Yeah.
Through the Clone Wars, all the way through Rebels, he's just fighting to free Ryloth. It feels like so it's like Ryloth is like the endless war. It feels like. So I thought overall, overall it was a decent book. It wasn't the best book. I did like the idea of it to where, like you said, Cham was trying to, at the same time that Palpatine is trying to end this rebellion on Ryloth, Cham is actually trying to take them out to end the Empire.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was an interesting concept, and it had some surprises, but overall I think it was a mindless action movie.
And I think the other interesting part too is getting inside Vader's head. You realize Anakin's not fully gone. As much as Vader's like, no, Anakin's dead. Like he keeps like Anakin's dead. He's not dead.
No.
I won't say how or why, but there are many moments in the book where I'm like, see, Anakin, you were there all along. You're still there.
Right.
Hence why Luke says, I sense there's still good in you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or there's still good in you. I sensed it, or something along those lines. So, yeah. It's while it is a mindless action movie, it's also a very thought-provoking book.
It is. No, it is. I think, again, in listening to it, I remember listening to it and you obviously hearing Vader speak and Palpatine speak. It's just really interesting, again, the conversations that they have and that, they're obviously Sith lords,
mm-hmm.
but and I'm starting to remember some of these scenes. I mean, it's not like they're best buddies or anything like that, I mean,
not at all.
They don't really like each other that much,
No, they do not.
Vader, it's one thing. Vader, obviously we know about later on, we know about all these Inquisitors that are around at this point, but we don't know of Vader. It's Legends now, like the Force Unleashed games where he finds an apprentice. Like we don't know that yet. If he ever does try to get an apprentice, or if Palpatine ever tries to get another apprentice, we haven't seen that yet. So all we know is these guys are just serving each other, and I guess it's kind of. I mean, Vader kind of did it in Episode 3 where he's telling Padme like I'll kill him and then we'll rule, but obviously that never came to fruition. But they're always, the Sith are obviously trying to top each other.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's like it's not like a buddy book. It's
no.
Yeah.
As I said, it felt very much like an abusive relationship type of situation.
Right.
Not good. And on both sides. I'm not it's on both sides. I think the other really interesting thing about this book, especially with how much we know about the Jedi, is they keep on saying Vader can do these things that nobody else can do.
Right.
And it's like, but you remember the Jedi.
Yes.
Were doing things like that. It just wasn't on that scale. So it was so interesting to be like, he's been able to do things no one's ever survived coming face to face with it. Like it's a whole thing. Like yes. Vader is like a whole, he's the boogeyman story you tell your kids so that they behave at night.
That's exactly right. Yes.
That's just interesting.
It is interesting. So what about impact? Now that you have this story of them in this time period, does this at all impact your thoughts on their characters? How big is this story within the whole vastness of the timeline?
I don't know. I am kind of going back and forth on it because part of me is like, you see Vader's power on such a scale and you get more insight into Vader and Palpatine's relationship. So I think that's very important. But otherwise, I don't necessarily think it adds anything, especially to the Skywalker saga.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Except for those aspects. So that's why I'm like, yes and no.
Yeah.
What do you think?
To me, I don't think it's that impactful. Because I measure impact, I measure like importance and how impactful something is to the rest of like the stories, meaning that, is this so important that it kind of changes my outlook on maybe another medium, that they were in, I just think I think back to like the Vader comic series that takes place right after episode 3. I think we're actually in the middle of doing those in Beyond the Saga. Those books, very impactful of how I view Vader and how, his journey. You do say it a little bit in this because like there is still that hint of, but this story, I don't know. To me, it's like and being impactful is does it matter if you really get into this thing, right?
That's true. Yeah.
To me, not so much.
Yeah, you have an excellent point there.
Yeah,
I think if you don't read the comics, then if you want to understand how powerful Vader is, and if you want to have a better understanding of his and Palpatine's relationship, then you should read this book.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. Yep. Yeah. Because, I think about this, and this technically is, almost to the Obi-Wan series. And, obviously that is very impactful too. His Vader's mindset at that time and what his mindset is eventually when it gets to A New Hope. But this being before that, several years before that, but it doesn't, like you said, I think it matters if you're not reading anything and you want to dive into this. I think it matters a little bit more, for sure. Yeah. Okay. What about rating here? Where are you putting this thing?
3.5.
Do we do this out of 4 or 5?
Out of 5.
Out of 5. Oh, you're doing 3.5?
3.5. Well, like as I said, it was well written. I love the stories, but I wasn't sure what story was the main story.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna probably give it a 3.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
In the middle.
Right in the middle. Yeah. It was good, but not great. But yeah, it's definitely, I will say if you are a fan of the Sith, then definitely read it.
Absolutely. I dare I say we got a little more insight into the Sith's mind than we did with the Acolyte.
Probably.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Agreed. Agreed. I definitely agree with that. Okay, there you go. Lords of the Sith. Go check it out if you're interested. They're definitely, this at this point in time, I'm not sure if they're selling paperbacks or hardbacks of this thing anymore, but they're definitely selling paperbacks.
Yeah.
And of course, it's on Kindle, but go ahead and check out the audiobook if you can too. It's actually narrated by Jonathan Davis, who is a very good audio narrator as well.
Yes. Very good.
So yeah, he does a lot. I feel like the ones that Mark Thompson doesn't do, he does. So, but go check that out on all your Audible and audiobook platforms. And we will be back soon with some more Beyond the Sagas. Check us out over on Inside the Force on YouTube for all our other shows. We've got council sessions and Masters of the Order and Dark Knowledge. Of course, Inside the Force Weekly with Hannah and I. And I don't want to date this thing because I was going to talk about, but because these are supposed to be like evergreen. So
yeah, evergreen.
Evergreen. All right. So go check that out and check out more Inside the Force and Beyond the Sagas. Come back for more. We're going to be diving into more comics and books as we go. Hannah, thank you as always.
Dave, thank you as always.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.